Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to, or we are running out of time to prepare, aren't we? Uh, let's look at why I think we're in for a economic crisis. We've had, since really the financial crisis of 2008, we've had massive money printing. We've had, like, it's an amazing thing. They printed all this money and it was supposed to create consumer price inflation, but instead all the money that was printed appeared to mostly go into asset prices, real estate, stocks, cryptocurrencies. Everything was inflating, and we didn't get the massive consumer price inflation. I do believe that there was more inflation than they let on, but they sort of made things look better than they actually were. But I feel that the consumer price inflation didn't go up as high as what I would have assumed when I heard how much they were going to print. But it's been forming a bubble a long time, but now we've got supply chain woes. We've got still got lockdowns, I believe, going on in China. We've got war. But it's not just the war, it's the fact that the grain, the wheat and the barley and the gas and everything like that that comes out of that region might not be so plentiful. We've had droughts. We've had wet seasons in some parts of the world, droughts in others. We're going to have probably a very tough winter in Europe with the energy crisis. So there's a lot going on. And, I think everyone should take some time to get prepared as best as they can, because to feel helpless, to be hungry, to be cold or homeless, those three things are like when it's a real crisis. Losing your possessions or going without food, that's all very, very tough on a human being. And the main thing is, like, you really want to be able to be warm and you want to eat. So, have you been prepping? Write it in the comments. Write in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe. But have you been prepping for SHTF? Because, every time I go shopping, I put a little bit extra into the trolley. It might be a couple of dollars of things, a couple of tins, but something that goes onto a shelf. Should I need it if worst case scenario unfolds? It could be a natural disaster, but the main reason I'm doing it is economic collapse. I believe, in my opinion, we're in for a really painful time coming up. We're going to have, in my opinion, a monumental crisis in the financial sector. As the central banks have put all this money to push interest rates down for how long? And they have done that intentionally to push the interest rates down. They did not want higher interest rates. Okay, so now they're saying, as a result of all this money printing, we're now going to tighten interest rates. We're going to not only put upward pressure on interest rates, we're not going to buy these bonds anymore. Okay, so now you're leaving it up to the market. Well, what was the market's rate of interest the entire time they were printing? It was a lot higher, because if it wasn't higher, they wouldn't have had to print money to keep the interest rates down. So they've printed money to intentionally make sure they keep down, because what the interest rate has not been a market rate of interest. Now they're telling us they're going to let the market decide the rate of interest, and they're going to make it tighter and tighter and tighter and restrict credit. Well, there's no way of doing that without causing financial pain. And it's obviously a pain so severe that they were prepared to print all that money to avoid it in the past. For what, 10 years, 12, 13 years, however long they were printing. I think since 2008 or 9 or 10, when they first launched quantitative easing. Well, if they were prepared to print all that money, to take that reckless path of action and never raise interest rates, or they tried to and then they cut them, but never really say, that's it, we're going to raise interest rates. if that was the path they took, because the severity of the pain was so bad to do the opposite, and now when we've got inflation, more debt, more printing has gone on. Like the problem is bigger because they went and did it for so long, and then of course with the pandemic, they went all in. Well, the problem now is going to be so much worse than, say, 2015, 2014, 2018. Like it's the worst, biggest problem that they have to deal with now. And they're telling us, hell or high water, we're going to deal with it. Well, as I've said in other videos, the Reserve Bank of Australia cried uncle when it only did a 1/4 point rate hike, when the markets expected at least a 0.5 percentage rate hike. The Bank of England went back to quantitative easing. America and Russia are at each other's necks at the moment. Is America really going to start raising interest rates? Now, the problem is, if they don't raise interest rates, they're going to create more inflation. And inflation is already at really high levels. So how much inflation can the consumer actually withstand? How much can the cost of living rise? How much can savings be destroyed? Because, not raising interest rates means that savings are going to get wiped out, because savings are going to be in the bank, not earning any interest or not enough interest to cover the loss of purchasing power from the inflation. So with all this being said, what are you doing to get ready for this crisis? Most people are doing nothing. You don't want to be most people, in my opinion. Do your own research. This is not financial advice. But I wouldn't want to be, personally, I wouldn't want to be most people like in a Giga Depression. In the Great Depression, most people were hungry, cold, miserable, depressed, out of work, hungry, just miserable, depressed. That's why they called it the Great Depression, and it went on and on for years. And how long without, World War II would it have gone on for? Probably quite a long time. So, it's really important that you've got enough food to keep you going when SHTF. And I believe that within 6 months, what we're going to see is absolute carnage. And that might be too long. It might be shorter than that. It could be next week. But I don't think it's going to be this time next year. It might be, but the timing you have left to prepare for this crisis, I mean, maybe look at your financial situation, your debts, your savings, but how much food have you got? How much supplies have you got? What if you can't get it? What if there's no wheat to make bread because it's all tied up in the war, situation over in the east there? What if you can't get provisions? What if there's a bread shortage, or you can get bread? Or what if they can't get fertilizer and the crops are all failing or not growing and there's a shortage? I think we're in for a famine. I believe personally, my opinion, we are in for a global famine. So have you got a vegetable garden of your own that you can control? Have you got some stored food? Are you putting in a few things extra? I personally just put in a little bit extra every shop and put it in the trolley and put it onto a shelf for SHTF. And you can call that crazy, but if I'm spending, $2 to $5 a week, that's like a really like an insurance policy, like a really small insurance policy. I don't want to get caught out with the masses. I don't want to be like everybody else. So now's the time to get prepared. And with food, the way the prices are going, you buy a tin of beans today, it could be worth twice what you paid for it. So hey, it's almost like an investment, isn't it? I think the time, like if you're waiting to get ready for this crash, I think you could be making a mistake, because I think we are in for a massive depression. And I'm probably the guy that, I've never heard anyone sound the alarm like I do. And most people think I'm a lunatic. I'm paranoid. But I don't want to be hungry. when everyone else is hungry and if I've got food, if I've got luxuries that they can't get hold of, well, who's the smart one there? And I want you to consider, you know, what if inflation really starts to bite? What if it gets out of control? What if that the central banks do not raise interest rates and go all in on the printing press and create hyperinflation? And suddenly the money you have is not worth anything. It's just paper or plastic, scrap metal. What if the cost of goods keeps skyrocketing? What if from the time you leave your home to the time you get to the store, the price is 3 times what it was? Because this is what kind of was happening in Weimar, Germany. They would have to negotiate the price of the food at the restaurant before they sat down and ate, because if they waited till they finished their meal, they couldn't afford the meal. So just wanted to make a little video. Think about getting prepared. What does that look like for you? I don't want to advise you on what to do financially, but what does that look like for you? I want, the more people that can get through this situation, which is only going to be, if this hits to the severity of what I think it's going to hit, and I think we're going to get a very, very severe financial collapse, like the worst in history. That's what I think. Well, if this hits, how bad could this be? You need to be prepared, man. You need to be prepared, in my opinion. So I'm going to wrap this video up. Be prepared. If you want to write down in the comments, what are you doing to be prepared for you and your family, or for yourself? And how bad do you think this financial crisis is going to get? I don't see another way out, and I never have. I've always seen that the result would be the same, regardless, because the end game of what they were doing, I couldn't see how they could raise interest rates without collapsing the economy, and I couldn't see how they could print money indefinitely and just keep doing it. So I'll wrap this video up. Please like, share, subscribe. It makes makes my day. Someone subscribed to the channel the other day. It was my first subscriber. I was absolutely stoked, and thank you very much for subscribing. And it really motivates me to make more content. The content will get better with time and experience, and especially with interaction. That is key, because your interaction helps me steer the channel to the viewers. Anyway, guys, have a great day. Peace.